Now you have to remember, it's been almost 2 months since we did a tank ranking in Mythic Plus, and a lot of changes have happened. It's a 10.0.5 and more changes are to come, and this is why we keep it fresh here on
for sure.
TLF.
List Friday.
Fridays, baby! What are we talking about today?
Well, today we're gonna be talking about tanks in Mythic Plus, and things have changed. Not some of the things that you might guess, however, things are probably way better than you might think when it comes to the overall performance of all of them tanks.
Yeah, man, it's way better. I'm guessing all tanks can do pretty well right now, and we have to make the disclaimer that, yeah, we pull all the data from Warcraft logs, you know, everybody that log with the highest keys and performance. We go to radar.io and see what scores are there, and also subcreation, although subcreation is a little bit automated.
Listen, it's good to have all of our bases covered, right? But yeah, we're trying to, you know, put our own spin to it and kind of, you know, decide where each of them goes, basically on probably what people should think about.
Yeah. But again, let's start it off with the Blood Knights. As we know, there are I would say HPS monsters in a lot of cases. I mean, there's really like no competition when it comes to the heals for Blood Knight, and this has been the case. A lot of folks were kind of expecting this in Dragonflight, and this alone can propel them to way good spot in the rankings.
It definitely adds that self-reliance feeling to yourself if you're playing a Blood DK where you don't need to, you know, take care of where the healer is and what they're doing. And obviously Blood DK is probably the answer. Is like, what would a healer do if it could tank? Seeing as how Blood DK's healing is basically its mitigation. It's shield block, it's demon spikes, it's iron force, whatever you want to call it. That is basically that strike. And not only that, it has a lot of improvements from past expansions. If you have played Blood in the past, you know that its mastery and overall blood shield was kind of okay, but now it's actually really good. And with the addition to the talent tree, it actually makes it a core part of your rotation that you can think of. Probably not that much because it's all passive anyway, but it does impact your overall sustain and also your damage now, which is pretty good.
It's decent enough. It's not the best when compared to the other tanks. I guess one little drawback would be that it's like super reliant on runic power in order to like survive and stuff. But that being said, we've seen a lot of logs with Blood DKs pushing around the 25 key level area, which does kind of rank them pretty high up there. It's not S tier, although very close. No,
this S tier is a little bit different, but it is clearing 25s, and some of the other tanks are clearing maybe one more over there.
Yeah,
but
we'll get to everybody. Don't you worry.
All right, buddy.
Let's talk about the Brewmasters, Brewmaster Monks.
Monkalicious.
I would say another very potent tank in our roster here. We're still talking about the 25 areas, so you're gonna see a lot of logs with Brewmasters on the 25 key level.
For sure.
I mean, you can talk about, so when you talk about the heals on Blood Death Knight, then you can talk about the giga damage a Brewmaster dishes out.
And even after the buffs, man, Brewmaster is killing it. And with the talent tree, it actually has some of the coolest playstyles that you can ever go through. Because you actually spit fire left and right, and it is amazing. It can get a little bit more complicated to play. It is probably the tank of the season that's most people agree that it has the highest skill cap when it comes to playing, and you have probably the most amount of buttons the Brewmaster ever had in this world, which is, I guess, fine for others. Maybe a downside for other people, I would imagine. But,
I mean, I know why some people are afraid of Brewmasters. Yeah, but we can talk about, I think, like the high skill cap for sure. Also, like the stagger by nature is kind of like reliant on, you know, healers, you know, in big pools and stuff, and healers know how to handle it and how to work on. Obviously, everybody kind of knows what they're doing in the 25 key, but just as for your average Joe, I can see why maybe there's a little bit of I don't really want to try.
You do need to be aware, and your healer kind of needs to know that in high octane situations, your stagger needs to constantly be healed, since Brewmaster self-sustain, although it's not terrible, it's not as good as it once was in the past as to what people might expect or be used to.
Yeah. Well, but listen, if you're afraid of playing Brewmaster because of all of this, just play Prop Warrior. It's fine. We're gonna get to that. Well, let's rank this bad boy. Let's
it's
put
all the
this
way
bad
up
boy.
there. It's
still A tier.
I guess I don't know which one of the two is better, but they're pretty close
like
to each other at the very least.
If you look at like
buddies.
they're
holding hands and
Blood and Brew. You know, the double B brothers.
One of them is drinking alcohol, the other one's drinking blood.
Oh my god. All right, let's talk about Guardian Druid, which I think it's a disclaimer is due here. We know that Guardian is getting some buffs, although they're not really that
Nah, no.
useful for them.
Not really.
But they have been changed, and we know that with 10.0.5 they came along with a lot of bugs. Those bugs were kind of ironed out, and they're doing really well. Just if you look at, just don't look at subcreation for Guardian, because that's really weird.
They don't love bears for sure, but bears are clearing 23s and 24s, some 25s, but usually if that's Shadow Moon Burial Ground, people don't usually take that as, oh, they're good, they're clearing 25s, since that's the easiest dungeon.
That's easy mode.
Bear is actually doing a lot of damage and can take a lot of damage as well. It can also struggle a little bit on the magic front, specifically because through its kit, you still have the bug with Tooth and Claw where Maul and now Raise does not reduce the magic damage that you take, and that's kind of a poop. And with the buffs, at least even if they don't address what Bear needs, it's a good sign that, you know, they're on the lookout. Plus, they definitely 100% mentioned that these are just part of what Bear's gonna go through in terms of fixing, and we're definitely gonna have more probably by the time this even goes out, so who knows.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely give props where props to do. Is like the talent tree is now much more better designed, I would say, and it does enable for a lot of like build diversity and different playstyles. And in terms of like strictly performance, yeah, you don't see them yet on the level that you see Blood Decays or Brewmasters, so we are talking 23s, 24s maybe. So just by that factor alone,
I think we can put in a B tier.
B tier, yes. I
don't know. A little bit of subcreation. Subcreation took your mouse a little bit.
Subcreation is in this mouse.
They made a new mouse, by the way.
But truth be told, guys, Bear came a long way where it was pretty like underwhelming and a little bit lackluster. It's way better now, and I think we can expect some more things coming their way. Physical damage, sure, they're getting. That wasn't their problem really.
I mean, you have infinite armor, so
yeah. We need some magic damage for the Guardian Druids. All right. What about Le Protection Paladin?
Protection Paladin. This has been kind of a surprise. I mean, we were.
Why, Flame? Why was it a surprise?
Well, I mean,
we love Prop Paladin, man. do we talk again about the talents?
I mean, if you have been following our content, and especially the Prop Paladin podcast as well, you would know that some of the Prop Paladin designs are a little bit iffy. Not to mention the big elephant in the room. You've lost the Holy Power Generation with Avenger Shield, which made a bunch of talents really weird and awkward. The talent system might be the downside of Prop Paladin. However, everything else seems to be actually going really well for Protection Paladin. It has some of the best mitigation and overall damage out of all of the tanks. It doesn't have as much sustain as before, which is probably what might put it a little bit down. But it's the good Paladin kit that just carries people.
That's
you just immune stuff, heal stuff, and you're like
still
Swiss Army knife.
It still retains that aspect of Protection Paladin where you do have a response to like basically every situation. Yeah, sure, you can talk about the lack of self-sustain. Maybe it was a little bit broken in the past. Some people argued for that. But that doesn't negate the fact that the talents and the builds that you can go for are still a little gimpy, and that doesn't always reflect its performance. It can still do very, very well. As Flame mentioned, it deals quite significant damage. And again, I think the most powerful thing for Prot Paladins is that they have like a lot of unique tools for a lot of things, like for party-wide and also mechanic-wide. So I would say it's a very respectable A tier, right at the back, at the tail end of Blood and Brew. Okay.
Yeah, the thing is, if you look at the top 10, 20 keys cleared, you'll probably see all of the tanks from A tier and up.
Yep. All right. Now let's talk about the star of the show, ladies and gentlemen, the Protection Warrior. Because I remember a time where Protection Warriors were a little bit like, yeah, I know Flame was always recommending Protection if you want to get into tanking and understand the basics of tanking, want to get into Protection Warrior, but it took like a little bit of time to address everything that is intricate with Protection Warrior. Is it the case?
It's not as intricate anymore. However, it is a tank that we would recommend people try out because it does have all the tanks things. Actually, Protection Warrior, and we're gonna get to Demon Hunter as well, are one of the best designed tanks overall, especially in the Mythic Plus continent when it comes to the tools that you have access to, all sorts of defensives for all sorts of situations. Not to mention that starting with Protection Warrior, you have to sacrifice almost nothing to also get damage, and damage actually matters. It might not matter as much as a DPS, but It matters when you have to hold aggro. It matters when you want to kill stuff really quick because you don't want to die or your healer run out of mana.
Gone are the days when the Proud Warrior will lose the aggro to Paladin Wings, right?
I remember that. I know what you're saying, man.
Yeah,
I don't think it happens anymore.
Listen,
I think it has the highest damage now.
Yeah, this is like if you wanna see some damage, like some real competitive pumper damage, then Proud Warrior is like the best of the best. It can compete with some DPS in the lower C or D tier specs in some capacities.
It out DPS the mages.
I know.
Man.
I don't want to go there. I know. Yeah, it can happen. So it does have this going for it, and to some extent, we have to say this, man. Like dealing a lot of damage as a tank is definitely helpful, especially when you are in a party with bursty classes. Not necessarily like the red paladins, although they are bursty. Yeah. But this was an issue back when we played in Shadowlands and whatever. Like whenever you played a bursty spec, right? You had to like, okay, paladin is a good example.
You have to bubble in your rotation
because and it wasn't the fault of the tank. It's like, okay, you cannot mitigate and aggro this much burst, right?
That was a problem. I think Proud Warrior took a 180 from Shadowlands when it comes to pretty much everything related to itself in terms of defensive damage and ease of access to play. It has some of the most weird tools that you can access, like spell block.
Spell block, schmell block. Listen, man, the coolest thing about Proud Warrior is it doesn't have to sacrifice almost nothing to go for like super damage or survivability or both of them at the same time. That's just like, hey, have your cake and eat it too.
That's definitely the cherry on top of the cake of the
cherry on top of the shield. Yeah, I said that. Okay, it's fine. I'm sorry. I wanted to...
Pro Warrior is good. That's the thing. That's the conclusion.
All right, let's place
no surprises.
Here it is, boys and girls. It's an S tier. What a shock. Nobody was expecting this. I think some servers are down because of this right now. Now, let's talk about Vengeance Demon Hunter, the last on the list. Similar in some capacity to Guardian Druid, where similar in terms of like kind of the keys, the range of keys they're pushing. I mean, we haven't seen logs of 26s or 25s, not yet.
I think there are some 25s, but they're failed. They're not in time, so we don't know exactly how it's gonna shape up by the end of the week. Vengeance, as with Warrior as well, it has some of the best sound designs. I mean, we talked about it going into Dragonflight when we're doing all the beta coverage as well. It has really good tools. Finally, after 4 or 5 years since it was put into the game, it doesn't have to sacrifice damage to gain tankiness, which is something that was weird. Now it can gain both, and it's slightly different than Shadowlands, but it does have pretty much all the things that you want, not to mention the cool Demon Hunter stuff.
Dude, you say they don't sacrifice much, but I tell you, Demon Hunters sacrifice their eyesight. All right, but then on the real note, like, Vengeance Demon Hunters are like, I would say when compared to like, let's say, Proc Warriors, they are more punishable if they make mistakes. Yeah. They're not as, let's say, excused when they don't press their demon spikes or they maintain them demon spikes when shit hits the fan. But that being said, they do have proper, very similar to like Propel. There's a lot of tools to react to
for
some capacity.
Oh, dude.
I guess like the overall numbers, like when you're talking about like DPS, mitigation, HPS and all that, they do seem a bit lower when you look at Prop Warrior, Blood Decay, Brewmaster Monk, even Prop Paladin. So there's no surprise why they're not doing like the highest of the highest keys. But that being said, they cannot be ranked, I don't know, in too low. Because again, guys, we cannot put C or D tier here because if we like the spec that would be in here would not be able to clear, I don't know, 20s up and above. Well, and all these tanks do.
Yeah, well, either way, I mean, you can think about it this way. B tier clears, the highest B tier key cleared is a 24. The highest S tier key cleared at the moment is a 26. It could probably get into 27s by the end, but it's like 2 key levels.
Yeah.
That's not a lot. That's actually pretty good when you, all things considered, when you look at how tanks were pretty much ranked in the past and how the balance was in the past. They're actually pretty good. Sure, some of them have some weaknesses that others don't have to deal with. That's the nature of the beast. And who knows, maybe in future seasons, future patches, things will shape up way differently.
Yeah, all right. Now let's pull up the subcreation ranking and look at that. So this is why it's a little bit like we look at subcreation, but we have to understand when you look at rankings on subcreation, it's all very automated. So there's no human contribution.
There's no emotion there. Look at the bears, dude.
It's just
you know for sure that no bear is looking at subcreation.
And I know a lot of you are looking at subcreation to like see the proper rankings, which is fine. But I mean, just logically think about it. You cannot place a Guardian Druid in F tier when Guardian Druids are logging 24 keys.
Oh, for sure. And even if you look at Warcraft logs as well and how the tanks are ranked, they're
pull up the Warcraft. We have the Warcraft. Pull it up.
There it is, on the screen. They're a little bit different than what we have right now. So when we try to make a tier list, we try to think a bit about like the actual practical performance of every other tank, because people like to over-exaggerate. That's fine. If you're playing a bear, you do want to say that pro warriors need to be nerfed and bears needs to be buffed to high heavens. But that's okay. But when you look at the actual data, they're not that far in between.
This is a success story ever since Shadowlands, because tanks are more or less doing well on the spectrum regardless, right?
Yeah.
So there's not like super big ass differences. Of course, you can talk about tuning here and there and things that are to come. You can possibly look at some minor prot warrior nerfs. I can see that happening because they are kind of you know.
It's on the horizon.
Yeah,
you gotta know that.
People kind of have a sixth sense for this, okay? But at the end of the day, this is the final tier list that we made based on everything we pulled out from the data. Let us know in the comments what you think. What do you play? What tanks have you played within your group? How would you see them ranked differently from us? Thank you so much, Patreons, for supporting the content. And
I was gonna say that the Patreons make a lot of this possible with all of the stuff that we do. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna have a lot more stuff in the future for you guys. And if you like the content that you see, check the Patreon link down below. You'll find a lot of tiers there with a lot of goodies, and be part of the Patreon community that has a couple of things that, you know...
A lot of tiers there, like a tier list. And thank you so much for watching the video. You have a great weekend ahead. Bye!
See you next time.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.